All right, I'm here for my 16-month update following my L3 through L5 lumbar fusion, which took place in May of 2021. So let's see, updates since my last one last month. And I do want to talk about shoes a lot today because that has turned out to be a really important piece of this process. But let's see, as far as like overall, how am I doing? Pretty similar to the last few updates of the last few months. I really feel like I'm kind of maxing out as far as physical recovery. My back feels pretty good. I had a kind of a muscle spasm scare a couple months back. That has not come back, so that was real positive. No real back pain. I mean, yeah, again, if I bend in a strange way, which I totally avoid doing, then yes, it would hurt, I'm sure. But it doesn't really hurt kind of on a regular basis. It's just stiff back there. I kind of knew that was going to happen. As far as like the leg symptoms, which were big for me, especially in my feet, my legs feel pretty good. I mean, once in a while I'll feel a little achiness in the right quad where I really had a lot of stuff before if I'm really active, but it's really nothing. It's not an issue. My feet continue to have some funny feelings or the dysthesias. It's always there at some level. I mean, I had a day at the end of last week where my feet felt darn near normal at work. And then just a couple of days ago, I had a day where, it was probably the worst day I've had in a long time. The difference is now my worst days, I can still wear, my regular shoes. And part of it's that I'm physically a little bit better, but I think a lot of it is that psychologically, I know even when my foot's not feeling good, it works, it has strength. I can rely on it, I'm not falling. So that's a huge piece. I'm hiking about once or twice a week, I would say, averaging about 11,000 steps per day. The most I've done in a day, I think, was about 24,000 steps. That was a huge hike and some other activities that day, but averaging about 11,000. I'll do the elliptical runner at home or the gym several times a week if I'm not hiking. I have that Elliptigo bike that I've talked about before, the stand-up bike where I don't have to bend over at all. I've been doing that maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, not as much, but still kind of keeping it in the rotation for sure. And otherwise, kind of getting push-ups back into the mix, which if you do them the right way, you're kind of doing a plank while you're doing the push-ups, so it's good for your core. And slowly trying to work back in some pull-ups and chin-ups. I don't know if I'm ever going to do like weights again in the way I used to. It's that I'm going to have to just kind of figure out over time. If I do, it's going to be super light. So that's that piece. Not really doing any, not using any pain meds other than the occasional Advil or Tylenol for, sometimes some aches and pains or, headache and that sort of stuff, but definitely rarely using those. So again, I do feel like at 16 months, I mean, some people said a year and a half is where you can max out the physical recovery, especially the numbness and tingling. Yeah, I still hold out hope that gets a little bit better. But if this is where I'm at, it's totally doable. It's uncomfortable at times, but that discomfort, again, more of a psychological issue that is getting easier to deal with. Because I know that, an hour from then or the next day, my foot will feel a little bit better and I'll be fine. I really want to talk about shoes because this has turned out to be a major player in this recovery and just the way that I feel. So I'm just I was doing a lot of research and I'm just going to go over some of the shoes and things that I've been using and what's worked. Because for the longest time, things weren't working when I was actively recovering. I was using more of the Crocs and that sort of stuff, which I still use. But let's see. I'll show you kind of one by one here. So this is a pair of Skechers that I use. And the exact name, these are Skechers Work Slip Resistant, and I think they're called the Deluxe, like D''Lux, Work Slip Resistant shoes. And I don't know if you can see it here, but there are no laces. You just put your foot in, and they have what look like laces here, but you can't adjust it. It's pretty much locked in. And I thought that would be a problem because once in a while it does feel a little snug. They're listed as relaxed shoes. They're not technically wide, but I mean, 90% of the time these shoes, I mean, I wear these a lot. I wear them at work all day. And I have not had to turn to my work Crocs, which I actually don't have here. I kind of leave those at work now because I hardly ever use them. And once in a while I'll put them on there if my foot's feeling kind of funny. Those are the Crocs. I think they're called the clogs. They're just basically black Crocs with no holes. So they're not open-toed or have, holes that way. But these Skechers are pretty good. For a while, I was actually, when I first got back into the hiking, I was using another pair of these because I have two for hiking as well. Unfortunately, the bottom, although they're slip resistant, they're not really great for hiking, and I wouldn't really recommend them for any intense kind of hiking. But what I do is I have a work pair, and then I have another one, my original ones that I used at work, but now I use those when I'm coaching softball, and they feel really comfortable. So those are from Skechers, and they seem to work really, really well. I'm kind of all over the Skechers stuff here because here's some more. These are called the Afterburn. And just incidentally on those, the work and the Skechers I use when I'm coaching, I usually wear about a size 12. On these, I got the size 13. I do feel like they're just a little bit roomier. I tried the 12 and those felt a little bit too snug. So just maybe going one size up for those of you that are having some numbness issues, you're gonna have to just experiment and try. Your sensation in your feet, your legs are gonna be different than maybe what I'm feeling. What's worked for me is kind of getting a little bit more roomy. And that's what I've done with these Afterburns. These have been great shoes. I actually just have my normal size in these. These technically are like trail runners, but you can see they're pretty rugged on the bottom. And I've been using these for more intense hikes and they have held up very well. They're pretty grippy. And I have the right size that I would normally wear for the 12, but they are wide. And I feel like they're very, very roomy. The only tricky thing about these is that the insole that came with it had this kind of funny gel insole, and it felt really awkward and aggravated stuff in my feet, but I loved the shoes. So I took that out and I just replaced the insole initially with some old insoles, but I'll get to this in a second, but I went out and at the recommendation of one of my docs, tried some Hokas. And when I bought the Hokas, they talked me into getting some insoles, some custom ones, not really custom, but the more expensive ones that you kind of replace the ones that come with it. And I'll talk about this more when I get to the Hokas, but those insoles turned out didn't really work with the Hoka shoes for me, but they fit perfectly in these. So if you look at the Afterburn for hiking, I just didn't like what it came with. It's, again, kind of a spongy gel thing, and it just didn't work. But replacing that with some, unfortunately, fairly expensive insoles, I have high arches, so I had to get ones that kind of, allowed for that, or were, made for people with high arches. I slipped those in these Afterburns from Skechers, and these feel great. I mean, I've done 8-mile hikes, lots of climbing with these, and it worked really well. So let's talk about the Hoka. So this is the Hoka Bondi 8. You can see the padding is so thick. This was recommended by one of my docs, and I finally went to go get them. So the jury's still out on this. I don't know if I'm going to stick with this or return them. I've worn them just a tiny bit. When I bought them and they gave me the expensive insole, after a while, my feet did not feel good at all. I was really surprised. I think putting that insole, which raised my foot up, made it too snug. When I put the original Hoka insoles back in, which are really not that padded, I mean, this has a lot of padding on its own, then they started to feel better. So I'm going to just experiment with this. The place where I bought it, I mean, allows you to have it for like a month or two and then really see if you like it. So I'm hoping these work because in theory, the cushioning and everything is really nice. And so many people are wearing these now, and I'm really hoping that it works for me, but I'm just not 100% sure that it will. Let's see, then around the house, and once in a while, if my feet aren't feeling good, I'll wear these like to the store or something. These are just straight up, you know, your generic looking Crocs. Nothing flashy. I think most of you have probably seen those. And then you may have heard me say before with some of my earlier hikes that I would carry some off-road or all-terrain Crocs with me because in the beginning I could only do so much. And then when I was doing the hiking, it put a lot of pressure or different pressure on my feet. And I'd have to pull out some of these Crocs in order to finish up the hike. So I'm going to show you these. These are all-terrain Crocs, kind of camo, pretty cool. And you can see they're pretty grippy on the bottom. And these all-terrain ones have, I guess, in theory, these kind of points here on the side that are supposed to be even extra grippy. And I'll tell you, they've worked pretty well in that regard. The good news is that I have not needed to shift or change shoes in the middle of a hike to put these on at the end in probably 3 or 4 months. So I have gotten to that point where I'm not relying on these, but I still carry them with me. They're super light, like most Crocs are. And I just know that it's right there if I need it. So even if my feet felt really bad, if I slip those on, they're going to feel almost normal, which is what it feels like for me when I'm wearing Crocs. So it's been a lot of kind of trial and error, going to some, I live in an area where we have some outlet stores, so it's nice because you can try in a bunch of different ones. And some felt, really bad right from the start. And some of these that I found, for the most part, felt really good. So I didn't realize how important the shoe situation would be, especially if you're somebody that has the odd sensations in your feet. Really do your research. There's a lot of suggestions and websites that talk about it. I don't know that there's a one shoe that's best for everybody. I didn't even think about the Skechers, although some of the websites did talk about them. But they've turned out to be the best for me. I do have another pair of like wide New Balance kind of generic shoes you get at Big Five. They're very roomy, and I wear those once in a while. They're pretty inexpensive. So just the extra wide, usually 12 or 13 size. I think in those I actually get the bigger size. And those feel similar to the Afterburn kind of trail hiking shoes that I have. And I also know that Skechers looks like they've come out with some variations of these work/walking shoes that I use. And I think they have some for trail. I don't know if they have them for hiking or not, but I'll be curious to explore some of those as well, since the brand has worked pretty well. But other than that, I'm doing pretty good. One thing I will add is that I feel like, as far as like coaching my daughter's travel softball team now, I feel like I can pretty much do what I need to do. So I'm throwing again, which I was worried about with my back, because you definitely use your back when you throw. So I'm doing more of that, and just now hitting, fly balls to the girls, that kind of stuff, like, long range fly balls where you do have to hit it and you're twisting your back, a decent amount. I mean, I'm not swinging full force like I did when I played baseball, but I feel like I can do the drills and hit, the fly balls that I need to hit, and my back doesn't hurt. So I think things are going reasonably well. So that's the 16-month update. I'll be back next month with another update. I've talked to some of you through some of the comments. I know some of you have just had this surgery, or are going to have the surgery, or prepping for it, a few months from now. So again, keep those comments coming. I'd like to hear your story, help in any way that I can. Or if you have some suggestions about shoes or things that I might find useful, I'm totally up for that. So good luck to everybody going through this, and I'll be back in a month with another back-related update. Take care.